Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wattung Yu. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is actually the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching, and I know some of you guys might just be here for the morning because we have regular classes on Sunday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and that's fine. You guys are welcome to come and go as you please, but just know that we're in the middle of a 5-day course where I'm helping students to be able to understand the foundational teachings in order to be able to move the mind to enlightenment. The Buddha taught these teachings that will help you to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state where your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated through training of the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's other people who are causing you to be angry or frustrated or any of these other discontent feelings, but this isn't actually true. And you can see this through the teachings of the Buddha, and you can independently verify his teachings. So his teachings aren't about a bunch of beliefs or rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship or rules or commandments or anything like that. He's helping you to learn how to train your mind and get to this mental state that he attained during his lifetime. And then he spent the rest of his life helping people to be able to understand how to get to that same enlightened mental state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to guide you guys in a meditation session, and then afterwards I'm going to share a talk on transforming the mind of the 3 poisons. It's called craving, anger, and ignorance. This is where you get kind of a high level understanding of what's going on in the mind and why it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings over and over. These are some of the pollutions of the mind that the Buddha discovered, and this is what you're working to uproot out of the mind, because that's what's going to produce enlightenment, where you can purify the mind of the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So if you're interested in joining us for our meditation, the way that we start is we start with some chanting to ease the mind into the meditation. And these chants are on a laminated sheet, which is over there on the cabinet. And I see many of you guys already have them. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is a learning tool or a learning device that he used because everything he taught was oral. So you can see through the origins of chanting that it isn't a rite or ritual or ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. Nowadays, there's people who think of it that way, but that's not the way that the Buddha actually used it. So if you choose to chant along, the benefit that you're getting is it's helping to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Because today we don't need chanting as a way to remember the teachings, because we have books, videos, podcasts, audiobooks. We have things like this that you can learn with. So we don't need to chant in order to be able to remember the teachings. But I still do it because it actually helps you get more benefit out of the meditation by easing the mind into the meditation. If you look at the translations of the chants that we're going to be doing, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death. Because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, because this would be ego and arrogance. And by the time you've gotten to enlightenment, you no longer think of yourself as being above other people. And you don't put yourself below other people either. You just consider yourself to be equal to everybody else. So I'm sure that the Buddha didn't create these chants himself, but if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for that person too. So that's why I suspect these chants actually came from his students. So if you choose to join along in the chanting, you'll see that it actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And for those of you guys that just came in, these chants are over there on the cabinet. There's a laminated sheet that you can help yourself to if you'd like to chant along with us. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance to be able to help you during the meditation. It's basically like teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating here at the temple, and anyone who's joining online will just all be meditating together. Now, during that time of quietness, I'm sure you'll hear occasional sounds because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet, right? If your mind craves permanent silence, when you're in a meditation, for example, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. You're probably going to hear an occasional car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping. This is all impermanence. You live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing. But the unenlightened mind craves permanence. Therefore, if you're in a meditation craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. It's not the outside world that's causing that. It's actually one's own mind that's causing it. So if you hear sounds during meditation, maybe someone coughs or sneezes, just understand that's normal. That sound's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away, because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. You can rest at ease, understanding that the world's functioning exactly the way it was intended to function, with this impermanence where things are constantly changing. Then after the quiet time where we're all meditating, we'll come out of that with some more chanting, and that's where I'll start today's class, helping you to understand the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots, the 3 fires. This is going to help you to be able to understand what's going on in the mind and why it keeps experiencing the certain challenges and struggles that it does. And I'm going to also help you understand the solutions of how to fix it as well. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions to meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions as part of your journey to enlightenment, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's just not possible. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position. And then at some other time, you can learn the tools and techniques of how to do these other positions, because you would need them at different times. There's various courses and retreats that you can learn all the ins and outs of the path to enlightenment. But in terms of the seated position, which is a common position for people to be starting in, you could be sitting on the floor, or there's chairs. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. But if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to help to soften your seat. Then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly, because if your legs are real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But this practice isn't about everyone doing it exactly the same way. This is actually impossible, because that would be permanence. All of us will find different things to be comfortable, and will actually tend to prefer one thing or another. So what I'm sharing with you are just suggestions or recommendations for you to consider. If you would like to put your right hand over your left, that's fine, but there's other options too. You could put your palms on your thighs or your knees. You could put your palms up. You could rest your hands comfortably in your lap. You can find whatever's comfortable for you. There isn't just one fixed way to sit, so you can find whatever you like. And anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, it's the same thing. You can sit however you like as well. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you too. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. Not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do the chanting on the way in, which you guys are welcome to join in on, because that's going to help you to be able to get more benefit out of the meditation. And then I'm going to come back in with guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava พุตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตูอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in naturally through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. As I was sharing, this is the third day of a 5-day course that I'm teaching. You guys are welcome to stay as long or short as you like. It's really up to you. I'm going to be sharing some teachings throughout the day that's helping students to be able to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. Because as you learn these teachings, you can gradually train your mind to get to the point where the mind's experiencing enlightenment, where there's only peaceful calmness, serenity, and contentedness with joy in the mind. This is a permanent mental state that you can experience in this life. And what I'm going to be sharing this morning is this topic of transforming the 3 poisons of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is going to give you a high-level understanding of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind and the solutions of how to fix that. Then we're going to take a mid-morning break, and I'm going to come back from that, and I'm going to teach something called the 5 precepts. These are 5 impactful decisions that you could make either wisely or unwisely, and it's going to lead to either wholesome results or unwholesome results. If you've heard that the Buddha taught no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants, this isn't actually what the Buddha taught. These aren't his actual words. This sounds like black and white. It sounds like rules and commandments. I'm going to be using the original words of the Buddha to be able to help you guys understand this important topic. Then we're going to take a lunch break, probably about an hour and a half lunch break. Then we're going to come back and I'm going to teach walking meditation. This is a meditation that's really helpful if you have an overactive mind or if you have a lot of energy in your mind and you just find it difficult to be sitting still and meditating. This is a great meditation for someone who has that type of thing going on in their mind because you'll actually be walking while you're meditating. So I'm going to be teaching that this afternoon. And you guys are welcome to join any part of this because all of our classes, courses, retreats, all of our books and resources are available for you at no cost. You can join any of the events that we have and be able able to participate and learn the path to enlightenment. So I'm going to share this topic of transforming the three poisons with you. And as I do, it's important that you don't believe anything that I share with you, because there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. In order to be able to get to this enlightened mental state where you're no longer experiencing any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom. You need to be able to understand the way that the world truly is, because what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it lacks wisdom about the natural laws of existence. If you can remember back to when we were children, how we lacked wisdom of the natural law of gravity, we fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys, and we cried and cried and cried because we didn't understand the world that we lived in, and we were having difficulties and struggles navigating this world peacefully, because this natural law of gravity was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. And because of our lack of wisdom of that natural law, we tended to make unwise decisions, and it led to unwholesome results for us. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of that natural law of gravity. We never believed in it. We actually saw the truth for ourselves. We can see, there it is, right there. And we learned about that natural law more and more, and now we navigate the world more peacefully. We don't struggle with that natural law anymore. We tie our shoes a bit tighter. We look at the surface of the sidewalk as we're walking. We stopped being so giddy and bouncing around like little kids all the time. And now we can do things like climb ladders. We can ride bicycles and motorbikes. We can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we're fully awake to the natural law of gravity. We've cultivated wisdom about that natural law. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And that's what the Buddha taught, is what these natural laws are. Because when you're experiencing the anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings, there's certain misunderstanding that the mind has. There's a certain lack of wisdom that the mind has about the world that you're living in. That's the struggles and difficulties that the mind is having. Just like you struggled and had difficulties with the natural law of gravity, there's other natural laws that your mind's struggling and having difficulties with. That's what the indication of the stress and anxiety and all these other things are for you. So these three poisons are going to help you to understand why your mind is struggling and having those difficulties. And once you understand these, and then you understand the problems that they're causing, then you can start to focus on the solution and actually implementing the solution and actually fixing it. The core solution that the Buddha taught is something called the Eightfold Path. I shared this yesterday with the students that were here. We walked through this using the words of the Buddha, where I gradually help students to understand this core central teaching of the Buddha. An individual would need to know that particular teaching as a starting point to be able to develop their practice on the path to enlightenment. But as they are, then you start to understand the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. So I'm going to explain this to you and help you to understand it. But again, don't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you. I'm going to share with you what these poisons are, and I'm going to give you examples and symptoms that you're experiencing because of these poisons. And then you're going to be able to see that your mind actually has these poisons, because I've never actually met you before, many of you, and I can actually describe for you what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life, because I know that the unenlightened mind has these pollutions, and with your mind having these pollutions, I can explain to you what it is that you experience on a day-to-day basis because of them, and that'll be your independent verification that this is actually the truth, so that then when I start talking about the solutions, you'll know that those are the true solutions for you. So as I go, I'm going to pause a few times and open up to questions that you guys might have. If you're here at the temple, you're welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. If you could use the microphones in the white bowl there in the center of the room, all you need to do is come and get a microphone, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and then you can just hold the microphone up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And you can take these microphones back to your seat wherever you're at to be able to ask your question, because you might have more than one question, or someone else around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone with them. And then if you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. That'd be really great. And then anybody who's online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask questions that way. So first, let's just talk about what these three poisons are. They're referred to as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires, also known as the defilements or the pollutions, or some people even refer to them as taints. The most detailed level of these pollutions that the Buddha describes is called the 10 fetters. This is something I introduced students to on Monday. But when we talk about this from a high level, we refer to them as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires, because this gives you a high level understanding of what's going on in the unenlightened mind and why you keep experiencing certain struggles and difficulties in your day-to-day life. Because whenever you're making decisions through these three poisons or these three unwholesome roots or three fires, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So it explains to you how the mind keeps experiencing certain unwholesome results in your day-to-day life. We refer to this as gamma. You might have heard the word karma being used. The word karma is from the Sanskrit language, where the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word gamma. This isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. What the natural law of gamma is it's helping you to be able to see the cause and effect or action and result. Based in certain decisions that you make, there's going to be certain results that you experience. And when you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome gamma or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you will then experience unwholesome gamma or unwholesome results. And when you have these pollutions in the mind, which every unenlightened mind does, then it's going to make unwise decisions in certain situations, and you're going to experience unwholesome results. And when you experience those unwholesome results or that unwholesome gamma, what the unenlightened mind will tend to do is it will look for other people to blame when you're experiencing certain unwholesome things in your life. Or you might blame it on good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate. Or some people think that what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis is because of God or some entity called the universe. Or again, someone might blame it on somebody else. But if you blame the things that you're experiencing on any of these types of things, then that means you're stuck and you can't actually fix anything about your life, because you can't fix good luck or bad luck. You can't fix destiny or fate. You can't fix God or some entity called the universe, and you can't change other people to do things your way. And it's not actually true. That's not why you experience the things that you experience in your day-to-day life. You experience what you experience based on the decisions that you make. And when you make unwise decisions, you're going to experience the unwholesome results or unwholesome gamma as a result of those decisions. And when these pollutions are in the mind, an individual will tend to make unwise decisions. But you can transform this and you can get these out of the mind to the point where you have the three wholesome roots. Because I'm going to teach you guys that too. What are the wholesome roots? So that now you can make decisions through the wholesome roots. Because when you make decisions through the wholesome roots, you will experience wholesome results or wholesome gamma. If you doubt this natural law of gamma and whether it's actually true and whether you're actually experiencing the results of your decisions, because sometimes people can't really see it very clearly, is ask yourself these kinds of questions. Who chose your clothing that you're wearing today? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose where you sit right now? Who chose the friends that you associate with? Who chose the location where you live? Who chose your job or occupation, or whether you even decide to work or not? These are all choices and decisions that you're making, and your life is a collection of those choices and decisions. So the beauty of understanding the natural law of gamma and understanding that it's not good luck and bad luck that is the result of what you're experiencing, and it's not destiny and fate, and it's not God and some entity called the universe, and it's not other people that is resulting in what you're experiencing. The beauty of understanding this is that if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. But if it's good luck, bad luck, destiny, fate, God, or some entity called the universe, or if it's other people that are creating what you experience on a day-to-day basis, you're stuck. You're locked in. You can't fix anything about your life. You're essentially a robot. And this isn't actually true. So you can actually gain the wisdom to see that what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis is coming from the decisions that you're making. And now put yourself in the position to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you will experience different results. Then you won't keep seeing the same unfortunate things happening over and over and over in your life again. So it's through understanding these three poisons that is going to help you to now bring in the three wholesome roots so that now you can make wiser and wiser decisions and experiencing more and more wholesome results in your life. So as I mentioned, the most deepest level of detail that the Buddha describes about these pollutions is called the 10 fetters. This is helping you to understand the detailed level of what the Buddha is teaching you to purify your mind of these 10 pollutions. The Buddha referred to them as a fetter because during his lifetime, if you were a prisoner and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball, and they would just keep you in a field. Where today we put criminals in jail cells and prison cells, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a fetter on your ankle. So the Buddha taught that these poisons, he describes them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state where it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings over and over and over again. But just like that prisoner, if they release the shackle off of their ankle, they're now free, they're liberated. The mind is the same way. When you eliminate these 10 fetters out of the mind, it's now free, it's now liberated, that you no longer experience those discontent feelings. So that's why he refers to them as fetters. But we're going to talk about them as the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots or the three fires, which is a little bit higher level because the Buddha teaches in these layers. The first layer that he teaches about this type of thing is something I shared yesterday. It's called the Four Noble Truths, where in 4 simple statements, students were able to understand the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And once you start understanding that, you go a bit deeper, understanding the three poisons or the three unwholesome roots. And then once you understand that, then you go deeper into the 10 fetters. So these are all things that you can learn as part of the journey to enlightenment. Because if you purify the mind of these pollutions, that's what's going to produce the peace and the joy so that you don't have to keep going around with anger and stress and guilt and shame and fear and all these other feelings. And as I mentioned, we're also going to talk about the three wholesome roots, which are the antidotes to these three poisons or these three unwholesome roots. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to explain these three from a high level, and then we're going to go into each one in detail and focus on more about the symptoms and really focus on the solution so that you can understand how to solve this. So there's this craving, anger, and ignorance in the mind. Some people refer to it as greed, hatred, and delusion, or you might hear it referred to as desire, ill will, and confusion. These are the different ways that different teachers will explain this. So what craving is the mind is having this longing, yearning, these desires, this attachment, this wants and expectations. The mind is chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. And if the mind gets what it wants, it experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, then it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, things like this, right? So the mind is longing, yearning. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind is chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. The mind kind of feels maybe sad or frustrated, and the mind thinks like, what can I do to get something better than this? Oh, I know what I need. I need a new boyfriend or girlfriend. That'll fix everything. If I get one of those, that'll make my life feel complete. So now the mind will chase after a boyfriend or girlfriend and really want that. And then when you get it, you'll feel happy for a while, but then that fades away. And then you end up angry and sad and frustrated about some aspects of your relationship with this person, or maybe you guys break up. And then the mind's like, oh, I know what I need. I need more money. That's what'll fix everything. Let me get some more money. So now the mind chases after that for a while. And then you get your more money and you feel happy for a period of time, but then ultimately that fades away too. And then the mind's like, what do I need now? Oh, a new house, a new car. That's what'll do it. Let me get one of those, right? So the mind just keeps chasing and chasing and thinking that it's something external that's going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. And if it gets what it wants, it gets these happy feelings. It gets pleasant feelings like excitement and elation. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And when those painful feelings are arising, like anger, the mind firmly believes that it's something external that's causing these feelings. So when the anger is arising, that hatred is arising, the bitterness and hostility in the mind is arising, the mind attributes it to something external. And now what the mind will do is it'll tend to push people away, or it'll push the situation away. You might have done this where you've pushed friends or family members out of your life, thinking that that's going to solve your problem. But you can see that that didn't solve your problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If they were the true cause of your problem, when you push them away, you'd be peaceful from that point forward. But that's not the true cause of your problem. So when you push them away, you still get angry, you still get frustrated or annoyed. Or the second thing you might do when you falsely understand what is the true cause of the problem in the mind is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. Because the mind's trying to get those cravings fulfilled. The mind thinks if I can just get things my way, everything will be perfect. So you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people, trying to scare them and fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing you might do when you don't understand the true cause of the problems in the mind is you might put your expectations on people and try to control them or pressure them or force them to do things your way. That's the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled, because the mind thinks if I can just get things my way, everything will be perfect. And you might even have people doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away. They're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're putting their expectations on you and trying to control you. And as long as you're doing this, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before one of your cravings, one of your longing, yearning isn't fulfilled, and you're going to experience painful feelings as a result. And the whole thing that's keeping this craving and anger in place is something that's often referred to as ignorance. I tend to use the phrase unknowing of true reality, because the word ignorance is like a derogatory word. It's a degrading word. And we're translating the words of the Buddha into English, and a Buddha wouldn't talk to people in a way that's degrading or diminishing, right? So that's really not the best word to use, but some other teachers use it, so that's why I use it, to be able to help you understand. A better way to think of it is like misunderstanding or confusion or lack of wisdom. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. And because of that unknowing of true reality or that lack of wisdom, the mind continues to crave and it continues to have anger. So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. So what I'm going to do now is help you to be able to understand this in more detail, because you can uproot this out of the mind and you can get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful. But as long as you don't understand this and you don't understand how to eliminate it, you'll continue to have anger and frustration for the rest of your life. So this craving, more detail about this is the mind's longing, yearning. This is the chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind is craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. And when the mind gets what it wants, it gets those pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So the mind is craving permanence, but yet it lives in an impermanent world. Everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. It's temporary. So here's an example. Think back to maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, you were probably so happy. Boy, was that a great time when you first got together. They were calling you and checking in on you, sending you text messages. You guys were going out to the movies, going to dinner. Maybe you were going to the park and having great conversations. Maybe you were even having sex and having intimate contact. Wow, all this pleasure, right? But then at some point, as time went on, you had these expectations of this person. You are wanting them to be a certain way, and they were wanting you to be a certain way, and they couldn't fulfill your expectations. They couldn't do things your way, and you couldn't do things their way, and you guys ended up breaking up. And then you might have been really angry and frustrated at that time. You might have been lonely or bored. You might have been missing this person. This wasn't because of your love. What was causing those painful feelings was that the mind was holding on, and it was craving permanence, wanting this person to be permanent in your life, when in reality they are impermanent. This relationship was never going to be permanent. Ever since the beginning of the relationship, it was always going to be impermanent. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, and the mind was going to experience impermanence, meaning this person was not going to be in your life permanently. But with the mind holding on and craving permanence, when your relationship ended, the mind didn't like that impermanence. So one of the ways to say this is, yes, the mind craves permanence, or to say that the mind does not like impermanence. In the unenlightened state, it doesn't like impermanence. It's holding on, craving for things to be permanent. You can see this if you've had people close to you that have died, right? Like grandma and grandpa, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters. As long as they are alive, the mind was getting what it wanted. The cravings, desires, attachments were being fulfilled. So there was a certain amount of happiness. But then when they died, the mind wasn't getting what it wanted. The cravings and expectations weren't getting met. So you might have had grief or sorrow or some kind of displeasure. Again, it's not the love that's causing that. The love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. What was causing that is the mind was holding on and craving grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. Because they were born, they had to die. That's the only reason why they died, is because they were born, because they are impermanent. Just like every one of us. Every single one of us are going to die at some point. But if we crave permanence and we're holding on to this world, wanting this to be permanent, when we get close to death, we'll really struggle with that, and there'll be a lot of painful feelings in the mind. Here's another example. Think back to when we were children. Right? When we were children, we might have went to our mom and dad and said, Mommy, Daddy, can I have some chocolate and ice cream? Right? We had this craving, this longing, yearning for chocolate and ice cream. And they're like, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. And we're like, thank you, Mommy and Daddy. You're the best Mommy and Daddy ever. Right? And then the next day came around and we were like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they said, sure, you can have chocolate and ice cream. Here you go. Thank you so much. This is so wonderful. You're so happy. Right? But then the third day comes along and we said, Mommy and Daddy, can I have some chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. You're the worst Mommy and Daddy ever. Right? The mind wasn't getting what it wanted. It was craving for that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. And now when that anger was arising, we attributed that to mom and dad. We thought mom and dad were causing us to be angry, where in reality it was the craving for permanence, that longing, yearning, wanting that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. Here's another example. Say you have a brand new car, and you get that brand new car and you drive it off the parking lot and you park it at a store, and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car, and you're frustrated about this. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be frustrated. It's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing the mind to be frustrated is the mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. This car is going to get scratched. It's only a matter of time. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This is all impermanence. But if our mind craves permanence, when we see that scratch, the mind's going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So what's causing these discontent feelings is craving, desire, attachment. The mind itself is causing these feelings. But because the mind lacks the wisdom of this, you will firmly believe that it's other people who are causing these feelings, and you will go around the world blaming other people. And now you'll have difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day relationships. So there's a better way of life here that the Buddha taught, is that you can uproot these cravings out of the mind, where your mind's not longing, yearning, and chasing after things. But also, your mind's not all the way over here too, because sometimes when people say, well, if I'm not chasing after my objects of my affection, then wouldn't I swing all the way over here to the other side where I'd be dull and lethargic and lazy? Well, that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with motivation, with ambition, with enthusiasm. But you need to learn how to do this where you're able to do that rather than chase and chase and chase and chase, and form your inner feelings on whether you get this thing or not. And the mind doesn't know how to do that in the unenlightened state because it doesn't have the training to do so. So the way that you train your mind to get rid of these cravings, desires, attachments is what I was referring to as the Eightfold Path. That's the core central teaching. And I taught it yesterday. It's in our books. It's on our podcast. It's on our YouTube channel. I teach it all the time because it's a core central teaching of the Buddha. You can learn it if you like. And when you learn this Eightfold Path, it's going to slowly train your mind in order to move the mind to this point where it's enlightened, where it can be completely peaceful and joyful through training the mind to eliminate its craving, its longing, its yearning, its wanting things to be permanent. But there's two things as part of that path that's really targeting the craving, desire, attachment. The entire path is helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, but there's two things that are really targeting it. It's breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. The meditation that we did this morning, that's breathing mindfulness meditation, where you're focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go, and you bring the mind back to the breath. What you're doing here is you're training your mind to let go, because that's what craving, desire, attachment is going to do for you. Is it's going to want to hold on. It's going to want things to be permanent. It's clinging, it's grasping, it's holding on and wanting things to be permanent. It won't let go. That's why when you broke up with that boyfriend or girlfriend, your mind was holding on, and you were lonely and bored, and you were missing this person, and you were angry and frustrated. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your joy and your peace came back. Or you're like, you know what? If she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. Right? And that's where your peace and your joy came back. But your mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. So that's what the breathing mindfulness meditation is. It's like taking your mind to the gym and exercising it and training it to let go. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that's the case when they hear the guidance to be able to cut off and let go and bring your mind back to your breath. You're going to have thoughts. As long as you're training your mind and as long as you're alive, you're going to have thoughts. You need thoughts. That's what's going to help you in your day-to-day life. But what you're looking to do is train your mind to be aware when there is a thought. That's when you're focused on the breath. You're developing concentration or focus. And when the mind moves off the breath, you're aware of that and you gain that mindfulness or that awareness of mind. And now you cut that off and let it go and you bring the mind back. So if 10, 15, 20 times during your meditation, you had to let go, this is very good. This is helpful because it's training your mind to let go. So now in your day-to-day life, when you're noticing the anger coming up, you can let go. When you notice the frustration coming up, you can let go. When you notice the guilt and the shame and the fear, you can let go. If you train your mind consistently with this meditation, it'll train your mind to let go. And now you'll be able to have more control and discipline over your mind. And if you train your mind this way enough through all the teachings of the Buddha, anger will never arise. Frustration will never arise because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. But in your way of getting there, in the process of getting there, it is going to arise and you're going to need to be able to let it go. So this meditation is helping you to be able to let it go. Then there's generosity. Generosity is also training your mind to let go. What generosity is it's the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. Because when there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind will tend to hold on to things, and it'll be quite selfish. It'll want things to be a certain way, and it won't want to share with other people. So when you start sharing with people, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return, this is going to help your mind to let go. Right? So if you're walking into the store and you're noticing somebody coming in behind you, if you're holding the door for them, this is generosity, because you don't have to do that. You're not required to do that, but you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources with somebody. And you need to be able to do this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there holding the door and you expect them to say thank you and they don't say thank you, you'll be angry. You'll be frustrated. It's your own mind that's causing that, because you're craving permanence, wanting everybody who walks through the door to say thank you, right? Maybe when you walk through the door, you say thank you when you see people holding the door, but not everybody's going to do that, because that would be permanence, and you live in an impermanent world. So if you can integrate some generosity into your life where you're giving and sharing with people, such as your food, your clothing, your money, your time and effort, things like this, your mind will be trained to let go. And the Buddha teaches you to do this frequently, that it's a daily practice of doing meditation and a daily practice of generosity. Because again, the mind's going to hold on. When your bank account balance is up here, you'll be really happy and excited. But when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happened is change. When it's sunny outside, you might get really happy and excited. But when it rains, you might get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. The only thing that's happened is change. The mind's holding on and craving permanence. So you need to be able to train it to let go, let go, let go. And generosity is going to help you to be able to do that. So do you guys have any questions on this first one of craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations? Anything you guys would like to ask? No questions here? Okay. Let me see if we have anything online. Okay, I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so again, this craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, this chasing after the objects of your affection. If the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, and others. But if it doesn't get what it wants, the painful feelings come in. And one of the painful things that can occur is the anger and the frustration and agitation can arise in the mind. When this is arising, the mind's going to firmly believe that it's something external that's causing this, and it feels uncomfortable with these feelings of anger and frustration. So typically what it's doing is it's trying to find a solution to this, but it doesn't understand. So therefore, with its lack of understanding, it'll push people away out of your life, or it'll push a situation out of your life. And you might have been doing that, where you pushed away friends or family members out of your life. This is the mind being unskillful. This is called aversion, where the mind is averse to this thing and it pushes away. But you can see that didn't solve the problem, because you still get angry, you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. Or the second thing you'll do when you think the problem is external is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or the third thing is you'll put expectations on people and you try to control them or force them to do things your way. You've probably been in arguments where you were adamantly trying to convince someone that they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry. That's the mind putting its expectations on people and trying to control them. And again, people might be doing this to you too, where they're pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, and putting their expectations on you. But there's a way to transform this, that you don't need to experience this anger over and over and over again. But as long as the mind have craving, it will experience this. So the way that you get rid of this anger, this hatred, this bitterness, this hostility, is you use loving kindness meditation. This is going to rewire the mind to be loving and kind in all situations. What loving kindness is where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, where you have active goodwill towards other beings. As long as there's bitterness and harshness and hostility in the mind, that's going to come out through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. But if you can use this meditation to rewire your mind, then you can go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intentions intention, speech, and actions. And now you'll see transformation in your relationships. Because oftentimes when the unenlightened mind is struggling in a relationship, people will attribute that to the other person. And then you'll try to change the other person. So if you're having difficulties in your relationships with your parents or your siblings or your life partner, your friends and other people like this, you might think that they're the ones who are causing you to be angry and frustrated, and you might be trying to change them. This will never fix your problem because you can't change other people. You can't convince 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. It's just not possible. So as long as you're trying to change other people, you'll never actually fix your anger. But if you work on your mind, training it with this loving kindness meditation, which is essentially like filling up your gas tank, you can then go out into the world with this loving kindness, and now you can be loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions, and you'll see that your mind will transform and your life will transform. Your relationships will transform, because now instead of being bitter and harsh and hostile and trying to change other people, you're actually being loving and kind to other people through your intention, speech, and actions. And the more that you're loving and kind with other people, this love and kindness will come back to you. Because as long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, that's what's coming back to you. That's the karma. That's the results of your decisions. You can see in the relationships where you're bitter and harsh and hostile that those people are the same way with you too. That's the karma. Whatever you put out is going to come back to you. But if you transform your mind, then you can transform your relationships. And I did this in my life too, right? Like when I was growing up, I had a lot of hostility towards my mom and other people too. I had all these expectations. I wanted mom to be a certain way, and she couldn't meet those expectations. So I had all this bitterness and harshness and hostility towards her. And she had that same thing for me too. And when me and mom were together, it was only a matter of time before fireworks would go off. Things would just erupt, right? Because I would be bitter, harsh, and hostile with her. She'd be bitter and harsh and hostile with me. But then I started training my mind, because for a long time I was trying to change mom. I kept wanting mom to change, right? But it wasn't working. So then I got wise to these teachings, and I started working on my mind, and I started transforming my mind. So then when mom was bitter and harsh and hostile, I would just be loving and kind back to her. And over time, we completely sorted out our relationship, where maybe she would pick up the rubber ball of anger and hostility and she would throw it around the room. In the past, I would pick up the rubber ball of anger and I'd throw it around the room. And next thing you know, we've got all these rubber balls of anger bouncing around the room. But then when I started training my mind, I started doing things differently. When mom would be bitter, harsh, and hostile, I would be loving and kind back. I would say things like, Mom, I love you so much. I apologize for being so angry and bitter with you in the past, but I'm choosing not to do that anymore. I would like to see our relationship get to a better place. I'm going to get off the phone and let you think about what you just said, and we'll talk another time. I love you, Mom. Bye-bye. Right? And I would get off the phone. And she was surprised, like, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Usually when I'm angry with my son's angry back. And she was surprised, right? And her mind could see that she was the one who was being angry. Because as long as I was being angry too, she couldn't see that it was her mind that was being angry, right? So then maybe I'd go 2 months, 3 months, 6 months without talking to mom. And then we'd be talking again and things would be fine. And then she'd be angry and bitter again. And then I'd do the same thing. Mom, I love you. I really apologize for everything I did in the past. I'm going to get off the phone here because I really value our relationship and I'd like to see us get to a better place. I love you, Mom. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Right? Whoa, she was surprised. So slowly but surely, mom could realize it was her mind that was having this anger. I had already extinguished mine. So then by the time she died, for many, many years, we never had any bitterness or hostility in our relationship. Everything was completely sorted out. Right? So you can do the same thing in your life. There are certain relationships that you have that are bitter and harsh and hostile, and you're going to need to work on your own mind in order to see those things improve. Because as long as you try to change the other person, you can't do that. You can't change the other person. They have to decide for themselves to change. And now when you change, the people around you will change. So me and mom were like in a log jam. And I had to pull out this expectations. I had to pull out this wants and this craving because I wanted mom to be a certain way. I had to pull that out. And then I had to pull out the anger and the frustration and the agitation. And once I did, everything could flow, right? If you have people in your life that you like, and then you have people that you dislike, that dislike is coming from your own mind. You have certain expectations. You want this person to be a certain way. And when they're that way, you like them. But when they're not your way, you dislike them. When they're not meeting your expectations, you dislike them. And the thing is that not everybody can meet your expectations. Not everybody's going to do things your way. In fact, there's only one person in the world that actually does things your way. Do you know who that one person is that always does things your way? Do you know? Who's the one person that does things your way? Yourself. That's it. So if you can only be peaceful and joyful around people who do things your way, there's only one person you can hang out with, and that's yourself, right? Because it's only a matter of time before somebody around you does things differently than you. So what you need to be able to do to get this love and kindness to come through is, yes, the loving kindness meditation, that's going to help you. And then going out into the world and being loving and kind through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. But you need to be able to get to the point where you separate the choices and decisions that people make from the person themselves, where you can love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions. Because you're never going to agree with everybody's choices and decisions. Because of impermanence, everybody makes decisions differently. So you can disagree with a person's choices and decisions while still loving the person themselves. And this can be very freeing for you, because then you're not trying to force mom and dad to do things your way, or force your brothers and sisters or your life partner or other people to do things your way. You just understand that it's normal for people to make decisions differently than you, and that's okay. And you can love the person while disagreeing with the choices and decisions that they make, understanding that everyone's going to make decisions your way. So when those painful feelings are arising, where you're noticing the anger, remember that it's your own mind that's causing this, because you have expectations. You're wanting everyone to do things a certain way, and you're never going to get to that point where everybody does things your way. So if you can only love people who do things your way, you can only love yourself. And you might even find that to be challenging sometimes. So you can get to the point where you can love everybody, understanding that different people are going to make decisions differently than you, and that's okay. Do you guys have any questions on this one? The anger? Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now we'll move on to the last one. The last one is this ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the confusion, the misunderstanding, the lack of wisdom. The mind in the unenlightened state just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. It firmly believes that other people are causing you to be angry. It firmly believes that because of its lack of wisdom. That's what's keeping all of these other poisons in place. As long as there's this lack of wisdom, the mind will continue to crave, and it will continue to have anger. So the way that you need to do this is you need to arise wisdom. That's what's going to antidote this. That by you arising wisdom, then you can see true reality, and you can see what the real problem here is that is causing this issues in your mind is the craving. That's what's actually causing the issues. So you need to arise this wisdom. And that's why I started out my talk with you today is saying, don't believe anything I have to say. Because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. If you're going to be able to improve the condition of your mind and transform it, you're going to need to get to wisdom. You're going to need to be able to independently verify these teachings and see the truth for yourself. There's teachings like the Three Universal Truths, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the Five Precepts, meditation training, the Natural Law of Karma, so many things that you can learn and you can understand. Building up your wisdom about these teachings, you can gradually move your mind to this peace and joy. But as long as this lack of wisdom is in the mind, as long as this ignorance is there, you'll continue to crave and you continue to have anger. So the path to enlightenment is gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, where you're gradually cultivating wisdom and you're gradually training your mind. There aren't rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer on the path to enlightenment. That's not what the Buddha taught. If you've seen those kinds of things associated with the Buddha's teachings, those are misunderstandings of his teachings. The teachings of the Buddha aren't believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing now in this life, cultivating wisdom, getting to a wonderful life now in this life. And you're going to need wisdom to be able to do that. So that's why you're not interested in believing any of the teachings. You're learning, growing, and developing on this path to be able to see the truth. You're an independent practitioner, growing and developing, doing this inner work, this reflection, this inward looking eye needs to be able to look inward to be able to see what's truly the problem here. Because the mind's ego, the arrogance, the pride, thinking that I'm so great and everybody else is wrong, that's going to hinder you from being able to see true reality. The mind's going to want to keep holding on to what it currently thinks about the world. It's not going to be willing to do this work to be able to cultivate wisdom. But if you're tired of the anger, if you're tired of the broken relationships, if you're tired of the frustration and agitation and all these other things, and you're willing to do the work, you can cultivate wisdom and experience a completely different life than what it is that your mind's experiencing now with the anger, frustration, and all these other certain difficulties that you might be facing on a day-to-day basis. But each individual needs to decide for themselves that that's what they're interested in. So when you start cultivating wisdom about the path to enlightenment, you can eliminate the craving and the anger, right? So while we call it craving, anger, and ignorance, it's really because of ignorance that craving and anger continues in the mind. When you arise wisdom, you'll be able to see the truth that it's craving and anger that is causing you these difficulties. And now you can uproot that with the wisdom and the techniques of the Buddha. His techniques and his tools will help you to be able to eradicate this out of the mind. So by arising this wisdom of these teachings, you can eradicate the craving and the anger. So any questions on this third one, the ignorance or unknowing of true reality? You guys haven't had any questions? That's okay. It's a quiet group, right? Not every group's going to have questions. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of summarize what it is that we were just talking about, which we were describing the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots, the three fires, right? This is craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. Some people call it greed, hatred, and delusion, or desire, ill will, and confusion. This is what's plaguing the mind. This is what's keeping it in the unenlightened state, where it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. And all the difficulties and struggles, any difficult things that you're experiencing, any struggles that you're having in life, it's because of these three poisons. Even global conflicts that you can look at between one country and another, it's coming down to these three things, that there's people inside those different countries that are having these craving, anger, and ignorance. But there's a way to transform this. There's antidotes to these poisons. There's wholesome roots. The wholesome roots are generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. Whenever you're making decisions through the wholesome roots, it's going to produce wholesome results, or wholesome karma. But when you make decisions through the unwholesome roots of craving, anger, and ignorance, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. And because of the mind's lack of wisdom, it's going to blame other people for what you're experiencing. Typically, what the unenlightened mind does because of its ego is whenever anything wholesome is happening in your life, that's because of me. I did that. But then when something unwholesome happens, oh, that's because of other people, right? And you can't have it both ways, right? That's not the truth. That if the good things are happening, if the wholesome things are happening, oh, that's because of me and my decisions. But when there's unwholesome things happening, that's because of other people's decisions. There's a conflict there that the mind's not seeing. That's the lack of wisdom that the mind's having. So there's a better way here where you can have generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. And it's through fully eradicating the three unwholesome roots and bringing in the wholesome roots that the mind will experience more and more peace, more and more joy. So what you're doing on this path to enlightenment is you're gradually decreasing the craving, anger, and ignorance, and you're gradually increasing the generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom, making more and more decisions through that. And as you're doing that, you'll see that the mind will slowly transition and slowly transform, where you can experience the peace and the joy in the mind. And this will be a permanent mental state, that by the time you get to enlightenment, it's physically impossible for the mind to experience anger or frustration or any of these other discontent feelings. So I'm going to end class here by just thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop. And as I shared, if you guys would like to learn more, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to take a break for you guys. And then when we come back, I'm going to teach you the 5 precepts. So if you guys would like to come back, you're more than welcome to do that. We also have other classes and other events that you're welcome to attend. On Friday at 6 p.m., we have a social event here where it's kind of like a party. We're going to have movie night where we're going to come in and people are going to watch movies. We have a popcorn machine where we make popcorn and things like that. This Friday, we have a Buddhist tour that's going to happen at 9 a.m. where I'm going to take students outside the city and we're going to tour around. I'm going to show students the artwork, the architecture, and the symbolism of Buddhist temples. It's kind of like a classroom without walls. So if you would like to go visit Wat Umong and Wat Doi Suthep, which are 2 different types of temples, I'll walk you through the temple and helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha through the artwork, architecture, and symbolism. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, we have classes here at 9 a.m. We also have some at 9 p.m. as well. And then at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, we have meditation in the main hall. So there's all these different events that you can learn about. You can learn about it through our bulletin board over there, or on our website. You can see our events calendar and you'll be able to see all the different events. And they're all available to you at no cost. And you're welcome to come to any of them that you like. So perhaps I'll see you guys after the break, but if not, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. And if I do see you after the break, I'll teach you some more. So take care and be well, and perhaps we'll see you in the future. Be well. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Oh, by the way, we're going to get back together at 11:45. That'll be about a 20-minute break. Okay? 10:40.